Hello, everyone. Welcome to PAXJOE Podcast. This podcast is a space where we discuss about faith, about filmmaking. Also, we discuss the intersection between the technology, AI, and storytelling and the kingdom impact. So we are living a time where tools are evolving very faster than wisdom, where technology is moving very fast and powerful, but meaning is often overlooked. So this podcast is not about trend, it's not about hype, it's about depth, it's about responsibility, it's about human soul behind the story we create. So my name is Joseph C. Ugwu, also known as PAXJOE. And today conversation, we're going to explore filmmaking in the age of AI and what must never be lost. Today, I'm so glad, I'm happy, I'm honored to have Spencer to join me in this podcast. Spencer is an award-winning filmmaker, director, producer whose work sits at the intersection of faith, culture, honest storytelling. Is known for creating film that doesn't shy away from the theme, but instead engage them with conviction, depth, and humanity. So he's also the founder of Heart Faith Film. He has worked in so many projects, including Generational Sin, winning shot Saint Nicholas of Bethlehem. In 2020, he received Best Director Award at Hell Kitchen Film Festival. And more than that credit and award, what stands out for me about Spencer is his commitment in telling story that matters, story that engage with the world without losing their soul. And today I'm so glad to have him. Spencer, thank you once again for being here with us and, for honoring this podcast.
Thank you so much, Joseph. It's a real honor to be a guest on your podcast. Love seeing you develop and work over the years. You're such a hustler, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we go into AI and technology, I would love to start with you, your journey. How did filmmaking become the part of your commitment in your life today?
Yeah, I grew up in a very rural part of the States, and my kind of escape was always film. I grew up watching movies on the big screen in my local community at the single screen cinema, going to a drive-in theater with my family. And from a very young age, I always knew that I wanted to make movies. I would see all the credits after the films, and I always think, man, if I could just be one of those names in the credits. And so for my whole life, I always knew that I wanted to be in filmmaking. Specifically, I wanted to be a director and writer. And in high school, I started making short form videos right whenever YouTube had just started. Back in 2003, YouTube just began. It's before Google even owned YouTube. And so instead of writing a paper for school or making a poster, I would make a video with just like a home video camera. And then we would show it in class. And then we were able to upload it to YouTube and share it with others. And then we started making hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube videos. And then I made my first feature film when I was 17 before I graduated high school. Because I realized that if I just put a couple short films together, I had a feature film. I sold that film on Amazon, did it again in college. Then I converted to Christianity after college, went to seminary, realized that I wanted to make films about God. So I went to seminary, so I had some theological training and hopefully could speak accurately about God, started Hard Faith at seminary, and then made my first theological heavy film, which was Generational Sins, and my first theatrically released film. And that came out in 2017, 9 years ago. And I've been making films ever since. I've directed 7 feature films and I've produced 12 feature films.
Wow, that is powerful.
Thank you.
What really stand out for me is your in what you just shared is ability to understand on time your calling, what you're
Yeah.
called to do. Yeah. So it's very lovely. I'm happy to hear that. Your film often engage with a difficult theme. For instance, generational sin, shooting one. There are so many of them. Brokenness. Your film always engage with brokenness, consequence, redemption. So what do you think story like that matters right now? What do you think, especially in the culture that often prefer comfort over truth? You always go deep in the truth, bringing out the reality in your story. So, what do you think story like that matters right now?
Yeah, for me, I've always resonated towards deeper stories, films that dealt with reality, the harshness of life. And I love stories of redemption. I love comeback stories. I love people that get second chances and people that overcome their past or their situation and that they come out on the other side. And so the greatest redemption story ever, obviously, is the story of Christ and the story of redemption in the Bible. But I think there's so many beautiful redemption stories happening all around us every day. And I think if we're honest about what we personally are overcoming, what we're personally dealing with, the darkness we experience in life and what we overcome and how we are sanctified in spite of our sins, I think we can share the beautiful grace and redemption story happening in our own life and share those stories through cinema to inspire other people to continue to fight, to become better people and to pursue grace and love, um, and to pursue God in a better life.
Oh, going into the technology and the AI, I want to ask this in question because since the AI came into being, everyone has been afraid, especially the actors, filmmakers. So because we are in a moment where AI is changing how stories be written, how we produce it, and how we distribute it. From where you sit as a filmmaker, producer, director, do you see AI as a threat to storytelling or as a tools that reveal who the storyteller are?
Yeah, I have never been afraid of AI, and I'm less afraid of AI the more I use it. And I've used AI pretty extensively, and I've been following it and using it ever since it kind of came out and before it got popular. I think it's a tremendous tool. I think it's really, like what's been around since, the beginning of television, especially, has been writing rooms. And plays have always had this. Some films have had this. Sometimes you write in a silo. Sometimes it's just one writer, especially for feature films. But often, especially long running series and television shows, have a writer's room. And whenever you're in the independent film world and you can't afford a writer's room and you want to bounce off ideas, you can either, work with other writers or a writer's group. And I think you should still do that. But what's great about AI is that it's sort of right now, at least, a kind of a dumb writing assistant. It's not all that sophisticated. It can't write an Academy Award winning screenplay. It can't even write a good screenplay. It can't even barely write a good short film. And so it's very limited right now. I'm sure that will change in years to come. But we're not looking for a regurgitation of what's already been told or what films have already been made, because every time Hollywood tries to make another remake of a film that's already been made or a sequel or an adaptation of a book that we all love, it's usually a disappointment because we want something original. We want original stories as much as possible. Of course, there's nothing new under the sun, but we want original stories. And AI cannot create anything original. It's still artificial. It will always be artificial. And so the only thing original that can be created is from what God reveals to us in our life and our living. And so people can still create original stories. We can still create original stories, and AI will never replace that. And so AI can be used as a tool. If you get stuck in a scene or with a character, or if you just want to bounce ideas off of someone, and you just want a quick response, ChatGPT can do that. But it's still a very limited resource, and it can often create more work than progress, I have found.
Yeah. So, one thing I discover, one of the concerns people raise is that AI can replicate styles, structures, or emotion. I've seen AI, the new development where AI being developed like to look like human being, even emotion, but not the soul, not the soul.
Yes.
What do you believe an AI can never replace when it comes to storytelling? Because I've seen a lot of AI film that look like woman,
Yep.
Even if you don't ask, if you don't do your research very well, you don't even know. And again, one of the danger of AI is because people can use it to put in false news.
Yeah.
You think that is real. So I think there is a need for discernment at this age. So my question comes back again. What are things that you think that AI cannot replicate? What we must not lost as a filmmaker.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's been interesting because, from my age, born in the late 80s, as I'm aging myself, but I've seen, technology improve. Like, I remember whenever CGI was new. I remember whenever video games started looking more realistic. I remember whenever computer animated graphics started looking more and more like real life, right? Like, even whenever Photoshop was able to edit people's photos to make them look, like the Photoshopped image from beauty magazines, like, technology has continued to imitate life.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to try to imitate life. I even remember whenever there was I think it was like a Final Destiny, like some kind of video game movie. And it was marketed as like the most realistic looking, video game graphic looking film that imitated life. And still, like you said, like the soul was missing behind the eyes. Even like the Christmas movie Polar Express, you look at the graphics of that film and it's like 15 years old now, so it's quite dated. But none of the kids and none of the film, it looks quite soulless. And those were cutting edge graphics at the time. There's still, I think, a tell, though that tell is disappearing. Like, you can still somewhat tell when there's AI, but it is tricking us more and more. And I have been tricked by AI, but it's often very short form. There will be a day, in a few years, maybe more than a few years, where you can make a whole AI film. But it's also very hard to give instructions and prompts to AI to change little details. The thing about film is that, like, the director works with the cast and the crew. And what's beautiful about it is that it's an orchestration of a whole bunch of artists working on every single frame and dictating every single frame. And there's 24 pictures per second, 24 frames per second to make up a film. And, 60 seconds in a minute, and a typical runtime is 90 minutes to 120 minutes. And so there's a lot of different painted frames that 50 to 100 artists are working on at once, all throughout from the very beginning to the very end of the film. And AI can't do all of that. And also it can't listen to all the different prompts to break down everything that's happening 24 times a second. And so currently, all that is impossible to dictate to AI like you can just picking up a camera and working with a crew. That could change, but I agree with you. The soul will still be missing. And AI will do more on its own, mostly replicating what it's seen and not being able to, it's still not going to be able to read your mind, and it's not going to be able to do what you can do with a camera.
Yeah, one thing I know about AI is that AI cannot do without humanity.
Yeah.
Cannot do without us. So we still the one controlling it. And one thing I know about AI in the filmmaking is that it's going to make work easier in terms of effect.
Mm-hmm.
Effect, graphic effects, stuff like that, So for young ones who are doing film, now it's going to cost a lot of courses for them. but it's
Yeah.
not going to replace human being. It's not going to replace human being. I know that.
No, it
So
won't replace
that
humans
is it.
ever.
So, okay, now for the young one watching us, listening to us, especially those starting, and the tools are more accessible now because of AI, but the noise is so loud.
Mm-hmm.
The noise is so louder. What would you say? What will you say actually matter most right now for someone who want to tell a story that lasts?
Yeah, I think what matters is by watching the stories that have lasted. There's very few films that last beyond the year that they make. There are some great films that are still known today that people reference that were made 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so watch the great films and see why they are still cultural references today, even if they were made before you were born, young people. Because there's a reason why these films stand the test of time. And there's a reason why the films that are winning Best Picture today are forgotten about in a week. It's because they don't have that timeless feature. Often they're missing a story of redemption. They are very trite and they're just imitating what's happening in the news today. There's this book. It's called "Don't Waste Your Life." It's sort of kind of a Christian book, but it said the main theme of the book was don't worry so much about the headlines of today, which is true. Same with AI.
Yeah.
One of the things the book talked about is if you collected a month's worth of newspapers, the headlines on every single newspaper for that month, 30 different headlines. Maybe of those 30 headlines in a month, maybe only 5 of those headlines would still matter. In a year, maybe 1 headline would still matter.
Yes.
In 5 or 10 years, likely none of those headlines would matter at all, or you would even remember that they happened. So let's not get caught up with reality TV, which is most of the news, and AI and the headlines. Let's get caught up with things that are timeless and ancient and beauty and things that never change, most especially scripture, things that are timeless, things that are objective, things that are truth. And if you make art that is truthful, it will stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's true. Remember these old artists, the lot of artists that have done art years ago, but still now they're still referencing them. Yeah, it's
That's
true.
right.
It's true. That's right. Because I feel like we are at the crossroad where technology is accelerating everything, but we still need wisdom. Just like what you said, we still need to look at what others have done, the story that have lasted, learn from them, then move on.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. Looking ahead, not just at AI, but the culture as a whole. What kind of story do you believe that the world desperately need more right now?
Yeah, I think the world desperately needs stories of hope. I think AI is sort of like the furthest iteration of the postmodern hopelessness that has been dominating culture for so long. I think the younger generation is desperate, and they've been living in a digital world where it feels like everything they do doesn't matter. And I think that can be a very hopeless, desperate situation. And a lot of people feel depressed because they feel like there's no meaning to anything. And I think that what the stories that people need today are stories that give people hope, and also that the life that they're living is meaningful, that the choices that they make have meaning, eternal meaning. That's something, there was an interview with the Pope recently, the new American Pope, and they asked him about his favorite films and he likes watching movies. And the Pope said, Pope Leo, he said that he loves movies because it shows the significance and the dignity of humanity. Because whenever you're watching, especially with a group of people in the theater, one person's life. You have your hero, your protagonist, and they live their life for 90 or 120 minutes, and you're rooting for them, and every choice they make has so much significance and meaning. You realize that your life too has significance and meaning. And so often people, especially in a digital world where you can delete a photo or upload a photo, or there's a viral moment, or someone's famous for 15 seconds and then the next person's famous on TikTok tomorrow, everything feels kind of meaningless and everything just moves on relentlessly. And AI is the furthest iteration of that, where now it's just imitating and creating constantly based on what we've already created. But what I think people do today are those timeless stories of hope. Even if they're older stories, I think people need something bigger than themselves. That's what's beautiful about the old cathedrals and the old churches, is that there's these big cathedrals that remind people and remind man that they are small and God is great. And so just get outside, look up the stars, and tell stories that remind people that they are just a thread of the tapestry, but that thread has eternal significance. It gives people hope.
Oh, that is lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, now on a personal level,
Yeah.
after everything you have created and your experience so far, what continues to keep you grounded in this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hard faith is an interesting calling, and also being a filmmaking, I think, is an interesting calling. It is not the easiest way to make a living, and it's not the easiest calling in the world to be a filmmaker, to be an artist. There's a lot of jobs that have a lot more job security, or there's an easier way to get into the job field and be able to apply for a job. There's not many jobs in the film industry that you can just apply for. Most of the work you have to kind of create for yourself. And so you really have to be entrepreneurial, and it really is a calling that is difficult. But for me, knowing that it's a calling, like I've tried to do other things in my life. I've done other work, other businesses, other entrepreneurial activities. But no matter what, I've always, since a young age and still today, I've always felt that calling to tell stories. And in Hard Faith, the motto is telling stories that liberate. And so when I'm getting ready to make the next film, as I'm starting to write my next film now, I want to tackle a subject that I hope will liberate people, will give people hope, will give people freedom in their challenge, in their struggle, and that will help someone on their journey of living life, and hopefully help them see hope, and like I said in my previous answer, that will give them hope to live tomorrow.
Yeah, that is the most important thing, to give people hope. That's always been my dream, because sometimes people feel there's no hope. So we have to do everything we can do to bring hope to them. Okay, Spencer, this has been a true beautiful conversation so far. Thank you so much for honoring this. I'm so honored. Not just for your time, but for your integrity, your thoughtfulness, your work so far. I've been following you for many years. This 6 years now.
Yeah.
We have not met, but I've been following you, everything. So I've learned a lot from you. If I've not known, I'm telling you today in this podcast, have been a blessing to me. So I'm so glad. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here with me to discuss about this. Thank you, everyone watching us today and listening to us. This has been PAXJOE, a space where we discuss about intersection of faith, technology, storytelling, and kingdom impact. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.